Today, I want to talk about a topic that I don't think is discussed very often, but is important, which is the proper documentation for dispositions of properties that were acquired subject to existing financing. What I mean by that is there are times where you acquire property by subject to financing that you decide instead of renting the property, I'm going to go and actually do a disposition. I'm going to sell it to somebody else using creative financing. I'm going to be the lender and I'm going to basically do some portion of seller carryback and I'm going to convey it to a buyer. In that case, your documents need to look a little different than how you acquired it. And when you acquire property by creative financing, you're basically having all of these disclosures for the seller to sign, basically saying, hey, the loans are going to remain, there's going to be, due on sale, those types of things. In that case, you're basically telling the seller, hey, look, seller, this is the nature of the transaction. The loans will remain. There's due on sale. There's other, potential consequences here. And you're giving all of these disclosures that you should be giving to the seller to properly protect yourself, to document the transaction, to avoid, future claims, that type of thing. Well, what about on when you go to sell it and the buyer is purchasing it and there's these loans that are out there that the buyer's not the borrower on? You as the seller aren't the borrower on. In fact, the original seller is the borrower on those loans. So the buyer needs to understand and, appreciate basically the nature of the transaction and the fact that, hey, look, if the original lenders, the existing lenders who the original seller is the borrower with, if they decide to invoke the due on sale clause, or if you don't make payments to that lender, that you could face foreclosure of this property. The property could be lost in that event, or something's going to happen to satisfy the lender requirements if they invoke the due on sale clause. So you have to have new or additional disclosures to the buyer in that transaction, letting the buyer know that, hey, this is the nature of the transaction, et cetera. So something to think about going forward as far as dispositions is you can't use the same documents for a disposition as you can an acquisition of a subject to transaction. You have to have different disclosures, different documents. So that's something to keep in mind.